So I have been asked to select a performance to break it down and examine it. And of course, just to be different and difficult, I couldn't just pick one. I had to pick three, didn't I?
Mama's going strong. Mama's moving on. Mama's all alone. Mama doesn't care. Mama's letting loose. Mama's got the stuff.
So the moment that I would like to look at is from Gypsy, and it is Mama Rose's song, Rose's Turn. And for me, this has always been such an amazing performance to watch. It's always really intrigued me to see how people interpret it and how different performers choose to communicate this moment in particular. And the moment is when Rose finally has to face herself and realize that her role is done and that her job is completed and she is no longer required. And I suppose it's probably something that a lot of parents have to feel, or they feel, or that specific point where the kids have flown the nest and they've gone and they're grown up. And it's that kind of case of, well, who am I and what am I if I'm not a parent, if I'm not doing this? And a lot of people go through that journey of self-discovery. But for Rose, it's even more heightened because she has lived her entire life through these girls. The first one, I don't know if you know the story of Gypsy, but if you don't, the first daughter obviously leaves and absconds and runs away. And the second daughter then, Rose, turns around, puts all her eggs into that basket and all her energy into trying to push her forward and create the star. And this number takes place shortly after there has been a kind of confrontation between the now fabulous star Gypsy Rose Lee and Mama Rose in her dressing room. And it's always set in a very kind of stark fashion. We have Rose alone on the stage by herself, usually there's a brick wall or outside the theatre venue where she's just exited, where she's in the street and she's been discarded, almost like rubbish. And there's this feeling that you can feel has been building up in this character since the beginning of the show, since we've met her. And this is her pinnacle moment. And it's a realization moment, which is such a challenge to communicate clearly. And I'm always fascinated by how people do it. So I want to look at Bette Midler, Bernadette Peters, and Imelda Staunton. And I suppose it's a personal taste, and there's a lot of direction that's gone into how these moments are communicated in this song, but you can tell that the performers had a huge amount of input into it themselves, and I'm sure there's a lot of discussion around this specific moment. They're all so different. For some of you watching, it could be a case of kind of Goldilocks and the Three Bears, that one's too short, that one's too long, that one's just right. You'll have your own opinions on it. I know which one is my favourite interpretation today, but I could change my mind if I look at these again tomorrow. But I will share that with you at the end. And again, there's no right or wrong. It's just different, and it's really fascinating how people can make such different choices and achieve such clarity in their storytelling and their truth. Let's have a look at Bette Midler first. So the moment in the song is after she has just performed this extremely, big, raunchy routine where she's finally shown the audience, I should have been the star. This could have been me. She's got a fantastic lyric or line in the show where she says, I was born too early and I started too late. And only for that, she could have been the star, but she never had that opportunity. And while she's in the middle of this fantastic routine saying, Mama's got the stuff, Mama's got the goods, Mama's got the moves, Mama's got it, Mama's got to let go. And that's the moment of realization that I want to look at, when she finally realizes it's over. So if we skip forward to Bette Midler's, I believe it's around 2 minutes 25. Let me have a look. Let's see if I can get us there.
Mama's letting loose. Mama's got the stuff. Mama's letting go.
So there's her first moment where there's a hesitation, and it's almost like there's a mirror there and she sees herself, what am I doing? There has to be a thought process there. Something makes her stall. It's written in a way with those extra bars where there's room for her to stall, and it's up to the performer to make sense of them. And with Bette Midler, you can even see in her facial expression there how there's that kind of uncomfortable, just awkwardness where she's feeling like, this is not okay. and she's caught herself in that moment, which is a really interesting choice, and it's a hint of what's to come. But she pushes it aside and she moves on. She strung herself back into her performance. There was a moment there where she came out of it, and then she goes, "Nah, Mama's got the stuff." And I feel like it's almost like she's fighting this inner voice that she has, which is trying to say, "Rose, it's over. It's over. You're done. You're never going to have this chance. Gypsy Rose Lee is gone. It's over." And it's that denial of that other voice in her head, where there's this kind of this battle. And it's always much more interesting, I think, when you watch somebody perform, when they're in the moment of fighting an emotion or fighting to accept something. Somebody's sad and they're crying and they're bursting into tears and they're crying the whole way through a song. It's not interesting to watch from a very shallow place as an audience member. It's you get it, they're living the emotion. But when you watch somebody who's on the edge of it, the anticipation of that coming is so much more interesting and exhilarating and exciting, and that's what's happening in this moment. Her eyeline choice here as well is really interesting to me, because if you're playing that in a traditional theatre setting, in a proscenium, you're looking now up at the dress circle, and it's kind of that idea of it. Is she having an out-of-body experience where she's visualizing that, where she's actually having that realization and she's seeing herself? And a lot of people use that as a technique of, I had a director say to me before, I need you to see a movie of the memories that you are creating, and you're playing it across the dress circle so much that you want the people in the stalls to go, what's she looking at? Obviously, you don't want them to do that, but it is that feeling that you're so committed to seeing something that they're with you. Whatever you're seeing is real, and whatever you're feeling and memorizing is real, so that you're living it, and it makes the audience live it too, because you're 100% in it, and she's 100% in it in this moment. Whatever is making her have this self-doubt, this voice that keeps coming back, she's living it, and I'm buying it. Mama's gotta let go. I love her hand gesture here at this moment. It's so gentle. And the moment, though, the moment of realization is not clear to me, and it doesn't have to be, of exactly when she goes, Mama's gonna let go. But what is clear to me is the feeling is sadness, and it's that where she touches herself, and that genuine, wow, that is, I have to let go. And it's an acceptance. There's an acceptance here before she goes into the next part of the song, which is, why did I do it? What have I done? Why did I do it? How did it get me? And it's almost like she's given up. So there's that way of playing it, where the acceptance and the relief of accepting that, and even her hand gestures here, her breathiness in her delivery of, why did I do it? What was I thinking? And I know she's going to build it back up again to the end of the song, because it requires a massive belt, and there's a journey here. So to take it down that delicately, to build it back up again, is really interesting for me. Scrapbooks full of me in the background. Like, what a beautiful choice. Just what a beautiful choice. I've already given up. I'm already starting to take this off. Like throwing in the towel, hanging up her shoes. Just a gorgeous choice, and it makes this very strong character, almost like she's disrobing in front of us, like she's becoming more and more vulnerable in front of us, that we're seeing the real Mama Rose. And I don't think that Rose has been true to herself at any point in the story since we've met her at the beginning of the show, which was years and years earlier. So to see this fragileness now is really interesting. That's one choice. Let me move on to completely the other end of the spectrum. So this next performer is Imelda Staunton, and this is from the London revival only a few years ago. And her portrayal of Mama Rose was just such a ball of fire and energy, like a yappy dog that just wouldn't give up. And she had such a drive and such ambition, and I think she really embraced the song beforehand. Even you can see from her physicality here, she's really sexual, and it's really jarring for an audience, which is ridiculous because it shouldn't be, but it is really jarring for an audience to see a female character be this forward at this age and to be this open and using her body the way she does is fantastic. And I think this makes the crash of humiliation even more devastating because she's been so open and flamboyant, and to then catch herself in that moment, it's crushing. So I love how far she pushes it before she has the collapse into the realization that Mama's going to let go. Just look how, she's just brilliant.
Just letting go. Mama's got the stuff.
What she has done here vocally, it's the same moment of hesitation that we've seen Bette Midler play earlier on, where she's caught herself in full flow, and then all of a sudden she catches herself and stops. And Imelda Staunton takes a moment to almost come out of character. And when I say that, I mean Rose has this persona. We're still not seeing Imelda here at all, but Rose has this persona of, this is what I am, and this is who I am, and this is what I could have been, and I'm the show mom, and it breaks, and we see the real Rose underneath it for just a second, where she does that gesture with her nose, where it's almost like she's a silent conversation with herself of, get it together. And I always think that for a performer, particularly in musical theatre, we're so restricted by the tempo of the song that even though we have to make huge emotional shifts and massive journeys through these songs, we have to do it in tempo with the music. And so to be able to have all of these thoughts and to process them and communicate them in a restricted musical time frame is really challenging. With this, obviously, Imelda has so much freedom, but she still does it so quickly. Even in that simple gesture, you see all of the thoughts that are happening in her head before she chooses to continue, which is just makes it so intriguing for us as an audience. We want to see in, because we see Rose almost let us in and shut us out again, almost let us in and shut us out again, and that's going to keep you on the edge of your seat. And she's being so truthful and honest in here. There is nothing put on about this performance. You know, when we as people are in conversations, we have so many thoughts, and then we choose very carefully what we communicate verbally, and our brains work quicker than our minds. And I think that's something that, as an exercise, to slow down a song and to go through it and write out your thought process before each lyric, so that you have the thoughts not on the lyric but in the moment before the lyric, which is inspired, which comes out after you've had the thought. That's your motivation to say it, to figure all of that out, and then work on physically trying to communicate that in a gesture, or keeping one word from the thoughts that you've written out and letting that be your trigger to bring you to a place physically, facially, emotionally, mentally, to let you say the next line. It's a really good exercise.
Mama's gotta move. Mama's gotta go. Mama's.
So the lyric that has triggered Mama's Gotta Let Go is Mama's Gotta Go. And somewhere in this moment, Rose, the character, has to go from, I think, hearing the word come out of her mouth, Mama's gotta go, to letting that word trigger a whole other thought process and take her on a journey of, Mama does have to go. I have to leave. I've nowhere to go. What am I doing? I can't continue this. This is killing me. She's gone. I don't know, however you'd write it out as a performer, but there's about 10 lines there that I know are going through Rose's head as she struggles to keep her performance facade up, and what she's doing with her voice here is so technical. To be able to do that and give us that feeling of breaking and to sustain that for 8 shows a week is phenomenal technique. At this point, she's completely separated from what's going on in her body. She's physically trying to hold on to this presence that she has, and this is going a million miles a minute, and we can see it, and she's trying to continue the performance, but it's not coming out here. And if you look at her eyes, she knows the next sentence that she has to say has to be one that is giving up, or that is accepting the fact that she's got to let go, which is coming. just the bravery of this performer, just the bravery and the commitment to be able to stand on a stage and be so invested in the thought process that's going on in your head that you can own that moment and not be rushed. It's a huge hurdle for her, for the character to get to the point where they are able to accept the fact that they have to let go and that this rodeo is over. And that face, look at the devastation in her face. She can't even say it. That's how much this is going to hurt her. She can't even, and this is what I'm talking about when I talk about having the emotion before the line instead of playing it on the lyric. She's going through it here before she chooses to share it with us. So this is the moment in this song where you see her crumble. And she's so invested in it. She can't even say it. But she knows that it's the truth. And there's the change where she's had the thought, where the thought has made her distraught, and where there's the realization of, now I'm past the thought, now I'm angry. And to see that shift, it's just incredible how she chose to do all of this before the lyric in silence.
Mama's gotta let go.
And the way that Bette Midler chose to deliver that was so delicate and so fragile and so humbling. Mama's gotta let go, and accepting, and it comes out of Imelda Staunton's mouth like a rocket. Like, I'm so annoyed. So we see that crumble of Rose, but then we see this dog come back, like the character that we've seen the whole way through the show. And instead of that, acceptance that Bette Midler had, where she took off the necklace and she started going, I'm done, it's over. She's going to take a completely different thought process and take a totally different tact with it. And now we have pure anger here.
Why did I do it?
You'll also notice, I think, that the music goes around and around under Imelda Staunton, and that's because she has the time she's given the power to decide when to come in on that. So we have that riff going around, and whenever she knows that the feeling is right, that she's gone to that place of the next chapter of Rose's turn. Why did I do it? And she feels it. She's not playing around for the sake of it. She has to work herself up to that place where she can now that she's accepted this reality, she now has to have the conversation with herself.
What did it get me? Scrapbooks full of me in the background. Give them love. What does it get you? What does it get you? One quick look, as each of them leaves you.
Yeah, so you can see how she's completely taken a totally different direction. Totally different direction, where the bitterness comes up much quicker. And again, vocally, to be able to sustain that kind of aggression and harshness in her voice is really amazing technically. So much passion. And that is also 35 seconds of silence, I think she had there on that stage, Imelda, to reach that moment where she took that turn, and not a sound, not a penny dropped. It's incredible. It's so wonderful to watch. And I was in the theatre and I did watch it, and it did make me go, do you know what it made me go, actually? It made me go, oh yes, I always knew that there was more to this, because I'd never seen anybody take that amount of time with it. I was like, I always knew that this was, I knew myself as a performer that this was a really important pinnacle moment, and that this was the shift that I kind of wanted to see people embrace more and acknowledge more. Anytime I seen anybody perform Rose's Turn, I was like, that jump, and even the way the whole melody changes and everything, it's such a gear change in the song. So to see her take that amount of time with it was really thrilling. Last one. This is Bernadette Peters, and we will try and find the same moment here. I think it's 125.
Mama's got the stuff. Mama's letting go.
She tackles this a completely different way. If you see, we've got the same starkness of the wall and the spotlight, and she's on her own and she's enjoying her dance and she's showing herself and us what she could have been and what she should have been, and Mama's got that. And actually she plays the realization on the line, but it happens halfway through the line, so we see it very clearly when she does Mom, and it stops her. And again, it's that moment of facing ourselves. The performers have got to decide themselves what is going on in their head. What is it that makes them catch themselves? It's such great freedom. It's such great fodder to have as a performer, to have a moment like this in a book like this, and to have lyrics like this where you have to catch yourself. It's just what the freedom that gives you to play with in your imagination is so exciting. I want to look at it again.
Mama's got the stuff. Mama's letting go. Mama's got the stuff.
I love that she starts before the band. I just love that she has that moment where everything begins to crumble. She's caught herself. She has this moment of uh-oh, and then instead of it starting off again in synchronization, she's like, I'm plowing on, and the band are like, okay, she's off again, and it's that really eggy moment. And these are the moments that we live for as performers, even though it's always terrifying. But when something happens on stage or something goes wrong, live theatre, you can't bottle it, and that feeling of electricity, and that's what Bernadette Peters gives us here. Gives the audience, even if we already know the show, she gives us that adrenaline and that rush of her sudden fear and adrenaline. You can feel it in her where she just goes because it happens so suddenly, and it feels so raw and so real. And the band hesitating starting afterwards feels so uncertain that it makes us feel uncertain, and everything is up for grabs now in this next moment.
Mama's gotta move. Mama's gotta go. Mama's gotta let go.
What a different interpretation. And for me, this one is kind of personally, because it's Bernadette Peters, but it's almost the perfect in between. I feel like Bette Midler's one from my ideal Mama Rose. I know she's such a warm and lovable character, but I just want her to be a bit harsher. And then with the Imelda Staunton version, the time that it takes to get there as a performer, I mean, it's great to be able to have that freedom and to make us wait for it. But Bernadette Peters does it in such a short amount of time, and it's still so believable, and it's still so, she has all of the thoughts that I believe that our Imelda's version of Rose has in that long gap, and that Bette Midler's version has in that kind of shorter gap. In here, she just accepts it a lot quicker, but it doesn't make it any less devastating. And the way that she plays it as well is so, I think Bette Midler's version was so internalized, Mom's Gonna Let Go, and Imelda Staunton's was so projected outwards, Mama's Gonna Let Go. And Bernadette Peters' Rose in this point just lets us see her, and lets us see her realize it at the same time, in real time with her. To have that vitality in your performance and that electricity is just something that, can't be bought and it can't be taught. But it's about being truthful, and she's so truthful in this moment. I want to watch it again.
Mamas!
She sees us, she sees the audience, she's open with us when she does the mamas, and it's just that vulnerability, that childlikeness, where she's even holding her hands and her shoulders in such a certain way, and her eyes are so fixed that these words are going to come out of her mouth as she's realizing them.
Gotta let go.
It's almost shock, and it's so simple, and her delivery is so simple. And sometimes I think that we can fight to emphasize the importance of a lyric, and sometimes the more we do, the more movement we give to it, or the more impact we try to give to it vocally, the more we undermine it, sometimes it's easier and better to just let the lyric be and do what it does. And instead of trying to emphasize it, to actually just let the status of the lyric just sit in stillness. It just makes it clearer, simpler, easier, and it's just more truthful. And for me, that's what Bernadette Peters' performance does at this point, where she's just, it's not about anything else other than the words specifically. That's everything she needs to say is in that lyric. She doesn't need to add anything to it or take anything away from it or do a gesture. She just needs to let that realization happen as she's speaking it to us, which she does so beautifully.
Why did I do it? What did it get me?
And even her status, her the way she, her stance, her physical stance, the way she holds her hands, it's almost like she's trying to keep it together. She's trying to hold on to the power that she's realized has just slipped away from her. And instead of the defeatist of what did it get me with our Bette Midler, or with the anger that we're seeing rise up in Imelda Staunton's performance here, it's just truth, and it's simple and it's honest. And I'm not taking away from those performers and their choices. I still think they're completely fabulous. And obviously, like I said, it's personal idiosyncrasies, how we move as performers has such a huge impact on how we portray roles. But there's something so lovely about her stillness here and her delivery of those lines, where she's trying to hold on to that tension. And as I said, it's much more interesting to watch somebody be on the verge of explosion than to watch the explosion. It's the anticipation and the suspense that keeps us intrigued and keeps us hanging on her every word. I suppose the point is that there is no definitive right or wrong way to perform anything. It's about being true to your thought process and to your story that you have going on up here, and being able to communicate that clearly, especially with the lyric in a moment that's as important as this. Sometimes less is more. If you trust the music and you trust that you're committed to it, then an audience will go with you and they will buy it. When you have to make huge shifts like this, the simpler you can make it, the better. Because just let good writing like this do the work for you. All you have to do is believe in it and be truthful and be real in it and be in that moment. It's interesting to watch how there are choices to have to preempt the line and to have the emotion and the thought and then deliver the realization, or if you want to actually play it on the line like Bette Midler does, or if you want to discover it halfway through the line like Bernadette Peters does. 3 completely different choices for this pinnacle moment, and like equally as impressive, all of them. As long as you can find your truth and you make your decisions in advance, then you're ready to practice and put into practice how you choose to communicate it. And so many techniques that you can do to help get yourself there, from writing it out, from playing emotion games, from trying to tap into triggers, words, to examining your own physicality. It's there's a whole playground of techniques and ideas and things that you can try.